How would you describe the national mood of the country right now?
People are so angry. There is no faith in our political establishment. Mm-hmm. We had 14 years of Tory misrule in which Boris Johnson opened the borders, which no one voted for, and failed to tackle illegal immigration, which is surely one of the most basic roles of the state, which is to police the border. An enthusiastic, overzealous embracing of net zero. No one's against solar panels and wind farms, but it's got to be a mix. Mm-hmm. They went for this mad ideology, the Conservatives, printing money. In my view, a COVID overreaction, horrible, nasty virus. Mm-hmm. We lost too many people. I get it, but predominantly mild for most, and yet we've destroyed the country with it. And then what happened is that Labour came in and made things worse, basically. They've achieved a miracle, which is to inherit a dreadful Tory legacy and to worsen everything. And so, and I think the public have seen that. They're not stupid. And now they've been told by this kind of double-speak administration, who are straight out of George Orwell's 1984, where the opposite of what they say is the truth, that we're growing the economy, the most pro-growth chancellor in history, who has shrunk the economy, right? I don't know how you shrink something by growing it. I tried to sell that to Mrs. Dolan recently. I'll spare you the gory details. Family show. It ain't going to happen, right? So I think people are angry. People also, I think, JJ, that people are just punch drunk from years of bad governance, from one rubbish administration to another, and they're ground down. I think inflation is a big one, the cost of living. So many of those policies in the most recent budget were inflationary, increasing the minimum wage. It's lovely on paper, but it's inflationary and it's going to price young people out of the jobs market. Well, that's not great, is it? Mm-hmm. So, anger, disillusionment. And what I'm worried about, JJ, is that, if it goes on like this, and if we have administration after administration, and it doesn't matter who is elected, they do not fulfill the will of the people, at a certain point, the public just think, well, voting doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And that's a very dark place to be. And at the heart of it, I think this is the most dishonest administration in living memory.
Really?
Yeah, I really do. And I think Sir Keir Starmer has a sort of Tourette's-like instinct to lie. I think it's his default. It's probably because he's a trained lawyer. Mm-hmm. And lawyers are there to propound an argument whether they believe it or not. What is the legal profession? It's just kind of a professionalized, it's a monetized balloon debate, isn't it? And it's like, today, JJ Anisiobi, you think that Fred West was not guilty, right? And you're gonna sell that.
Yeah.
That's and I think that he's kept that sort of lawyer mentality of taking a position, and I think people are angry, they're upset, they're ground down, they're broke, and there's very little hope for the near future, given the size of the majority that this government have and the length of the term that remains, which is at least 3 years.
Do you think Britain has lost what it is, what it stands for, like our collective identity? When I think about Australians, I think pretty laid back people, they say how it is. I used to think Britain was stiff upper lip, we'll keep on going, we'll be polite and we'll welcome people. I don't feel like Britain has a proper identity anymore.
I think you're so right, and it's more than that. It's a crime to have an identity. It is far right to wave the flag and talk about Britishness and to celebrate it. Whether it's in schools or universities, there's such a culture now of demonizing this country, its values and its past. And yes, we've of course got a dark history like every country. Slavery is the most egregious crime in all history, and that must be reflected upon. But this country gave the world representative democracy, gave the world free markets, the idea of free speech, the rule of law. We, of course, were the first major power to end slavery. In relative terms, Britain is one of the greatest countries in the world and always has been. It's made a far more positive than negative contribution. But what we've done in recent years, maybe through the academic establishment, is to look down on our past and to feel sorry for being ourselves. That's a crazy thing to do. The Americans don't do that. And it's no mistake that America is the most commercially, financially, economically successful country in world history, right? Even compared to the British Empire, America's economic footprint is bigger, which is pretty impressive. And they're not apologetic about the flag and their identity and being an American. So I think definitely we've lost our mojo, and Then you've got policies that have been at odds with national identity as well. I grew up in the 80s. No one
Did you?
Well, did I?
Did you?
Born in 74. I never grew up. That's the first thing. Born in 74. There is Britain has always been a diverse society. It's never been a problem, right? I don't know anyone that's anti-immigration. But policies from various administrations, starting with Blair and opening the border to the east in order to, in inverted commas, rub the Tories' faces in diversity. From that, what you saw was the depressing of wages in northern towns and also integration issues. And then it carried on, and then it absolutely maxed out under Boris Johnson. So you've got policies that have killed our national identity, which is too much immigration and not, focusing on, who's coming, what are they bringing to the party. That's not far right to say that, because if I want to go and live in Australia, I have to demonstrate to them what I'm bringing to the party. They want to see my bank statements. Yeah. They want to see my qualifications. And when I'm there will be a period of time, like a kind of sort of setting, what do you call it, a sort of probation period, where I would have to be working, wouldn't get benefits. So I think it's a mixture of policies and then sort of a cultural thing where we've fallen out of love with ourselves, and we've got to go the other way. But I will always say there's definitely hope for the future, but strap yourselves in for the next 3 years, because it's going to be a rough ride.
Talked earlier about people have lost faith in politics. I feel the same in journalism. I think people have lost faith in proper journalists, mainstream media. We're the enemy. And now it's online influencers, independent journalists who aren't really journalists. These aren't people who have qualified in journalism.
Correct.
These are just people who go out with a phone and start asking questions and filming things. But are we to blame for that?
Yes. It's actually, it's not really we, it's actually you, JJ.
How is it my fault?
You are a very deceptive man. You're the king of misinformation. His name's not even JJ, he's called Steve. I mean, nothing's real.
It's all smoke and mirrors.
No. What's happened is that there's a disconnect between those who produce journalism and the consumer, the reader, the listener, the viewer. And I think we saw that, for example, in the run-up to Brexit, where I think it just happened to be the case that the people working, for example, at the BBC, the producers, the researchers, and maybe the on-air talent, the vast majority of them probably thought Brexit was a bad idea. So the way they reported Brexit was that it was a bad idea. The way they reported the negotiations was that Britain's done this bad thing and the EU are trying to clean up the mess, and hopefully they'll give us this and they'll give us that. And that was completely the wrong attitude, because Brexit was a decision to leave a political union, right? This was, it was a very, okay, we can debate the rights and wrongs of it. But I think that's where a lot of people fell out with, parted company with establishment media, because Brexit was being sold really and reported on as a bad thing. It's like, no policy is a bad thing. Raising taxes is neither bad nor good, depending on the argument that supports it. Brexit is neither bad nor. You can't say Brexit is a bad thing. You have to say that I think there are strategic advantages to it, or there are no strategic advantages to it. But anyway, so I think that's what happened. I mean, you've seen those statistics in universities, like in America especially, but how many professors at American universities are Republicans? And it's like 3%.
Yeah.
Right? And it's amazing that the universities don't panic about that. They just think, yeah, exactly, because it's right to be left-wing. It's like, no, it's so bad for you guys that there are 3% of the professors are open Republicans, because it's a university. And if you look at the electoral map, every university should be 50% Democrat supporting 50% Republican. It's a problem for you that it's 3%. You might like it, but it's a problem. And I think the media has got like that. Establishment media has got that, where there's basically the vast majority of journalists and reporters and all the rest of it have a left-leaning bent, like a progressive bent, and they don't represent the whole country. So that's the problem, and that's why and people aren't stupid when they read the newspaper, or no, especially. I think newspapers is not a problem, actually. By the way,
no.
I think for example, the Express and the Guardian and the Telegraph and the Mirror, they're all off the hook, and I'll tell you for why. Because the public they have an unspoken understanding that the Mirror is left-leaning, the Mail's right-leaning, the Express is patriotic, more to the right, centre-right. kind of warm to Farage. So actually, the papers are great. They kind of come with a health warning. You know, the Guardian. You know, no one's going there for just 100% undiluted information, are they?
Yeah.
So I think the papers are fine. I think it's a problem with the TV and radio networks, which are supposed to be neutral and are not. And by the way, Brexit is just one. You know, COVID, which was it was a pro-lockdown narrative, and Boris Johnson, he was just demonized in the course of his time in office. I mean, look at the flack that he got for so-called Partygate, where he stood near a glass of orange juice and lost his job.
Well, you say stood near. Come on. There was a cheese and crackers out in the garden as well.
Correct. And peanuts. But the issue is that, no, of course, I'm not making light of it because the conduct at Number 10 was unacceptable. But, Rachel Reeves has provably impacted the lives of people with two awful budgets that everyone hated.
Well, they're not awful. They're just budgets.
They're just budgets.
No,
right?
there may be advantages and disadvantages to the budget,
coming
but
back to haunt me. Well, that's it. But so I think that's what. So people, they're disillusioned, and that's why they're going elsewhere.